Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad, joined here by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow, and our special guest this evening, Mr. John Farquhar. John is here with us. He is the founder of, John, what's the name of your company again?
Summit Risk Solutions.
Summit Risk Solutions.
Yep.
And tonight we're going to be talking about a very, very, very important topic to all of us and very interesting topic, safety. John brings a lot of expertise to the area, so we are definitely appreciative of him joining us this evening. We don't have a DAT trend lines report this evening, so we're going to just kind of jump right into the topic of affairs. I am going to put a link down in the chat. If you're watching this live, you feel free to click on the link and you can join us via video. And if you're watching this later at a time, remember, we need you. We need all of your support. We need you to like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. That helps us get the show pushed out to a broader viewing audience and helps us gain helps us gain a little bit more traction in the space. So if you could help us out with that, we greatly appreciate that. So with that being said, Chuck, good evening, and John, good evening. Welcome to the show this evening.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll jump right into the proceedings. Chuck, how have you been since last time? You took a week off.
Yeah, I missed last week. I was out in Vancouver, British Columbia, and because of the time difference, it just didn't work out. So I got Hank Seaton, God bless him, to take my place, and I hear he did a phenomenal job as always.
Absolutely.
Up in Canada, we just finished our Canadian Thanksgiving. Yes, we have ours in October, and you folks down there have yours in November. And I will give you a little bit of history. When many years ago, about 35 years ago now, maybe a little longer, when Canada and the U.S. were working out their free trade agreement, and you guys found out, whoever was setting it up and working on the details, when they found out when our Thanksgiving was, the second weekend in October, they said, you know what? We like that idea. I think we may change ours. And somebody said, hey, get your hands off that button, buddy. This was back then. This is $1 billion football weekend. You're not touching it. And end of story. So we had our turkey yesterday. And many Canadians will enjoy another helping of turkey the last Thursday in November, because many people celebrate that one as well, especially my friends that love football. They park their rear ends on the couches, just like any good old red-blooded American boy or
Come
girl.
on now.
And start watching football. But, yeah, we've been well. Rico, I want to bring some news up to just to some of our listeners that aren't familiar with the story. I was flying back from Vancouver last Wednesday, and I picked up a copy of the Globe and Mail, which is Canada's probably our oldest and most prestigious business newspaper. Because I'm an old guy and I still love the feel of paper. And I've never watched a movie in a plane in my life. I always read. And I was reading the Globe and Mail, and lo and behold, here is an article on Loblaws, who is Canada's largest grocery chain. I think they're one of the oldest as well, but they're certainly the largest. And here's a story about them running autonomous trucks out of their Peel Region Distribution Center or head office. And these were truly autonomous trucks. And I mean, there was nobody in the truck. The truck was there. Now, it was only a class 2 or 3 truck. The truck was running from, when you dig into the story, it was running in the suburban area. And it was running from a distribution center to the stores. But these stores are located in busy shopping plazas. And they're dangerous because there's people backing out of parking spots and little kids who are running away from their mothers and all sorts of stuff. Shopping carts that are getting away from people. It's a real S show. So I was really shocked. And then when the story broke, all the news media, including the trucking news media, grabbed onto it, and it was true. They were running these autonomous trucks with the blessing of the Ontario Ministry of Transport. And it turns out that Walmart down in Bentonville has been doing it for the exact same thing, only with larger trucks. It looks like around a Class 5 truck. Nobody's doing it that I know of with nobody in the truck with a Class 8. But I find it, Rico, I have to apologize for the many times I said to you, there's no way this is going to happen in our life. And look, you and I are both alive, and this has happened.
No apologies, Nia. Like I said, I just don't. I forget what movie it was, and I think it was a running joke. It said, "Never underestimate the other guy's greed."
Yep. Should have laid money on this one, Rico. You might be a rich man right now.
I'm glad I didn't. I might be a very poor man.
And I tell you, I think from the standpoint of a lot of people and people that have the money and have the means and the resources, this is just too big of an opportunity to deny. And I think that the more and more you get more and more people that are getting more comfortable with the idea of autonomous thing. I mean, with Teslas and everything, no matter regardless. I mean, you've seen the horrific crashes that Teslas have had with their autopilot feature or whatever, but yet and still people are signing up for them and still are willing to take those risks and try them out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely see it as a full steam ahead. And I believe that, the more younger people that are coming up that seem to be a lot more comfortable with this situation, I think that they'll be able to get this pushed right on through, which is a scary proposition for people that are in the industry and for people kind of thinking about their future in the industry as well.
Yeah.
But safety here, so here we from a safety aspect of it, from a safety concern. John, what are you is in that industry, in your industry, as far as that's concerned? How big of a topic or an issue are they? How much of this has the attention in that space?
Well, there's no doubt there's a lot of people looking in, watching to see what's going to happen, because it still comes down to the point that there's going to be a human involved somewhere, whether it be in the programming of the vehicle, the maintenance of the vehicle, the routing of the vehicle and whatnot is going to be a challenge. But what happens when the vehicle decides to stop working? I get that with my computer. All of a sudden it freezes up. Now what do I do? Right? Who takes over? How are we going to get that taken care of? So hopefully there's somebody on the other end that could jump on and take care of that. We know that if there's somebody in the vehicle, well then, okay, they could reach over and grab steering wheel and do whatever. So it's really interesting to find out. Well, it's going to be interesting to find out what's going to happen. I think there's still a lot of what ifs and unanswered questions as to what's going to happen here. There still has to be training involved as far as what we do around these vehicles, how we operate these vehicles. There's going to be training for the public that's going to be required. What are you going to do if you're operating in an environment and all of a sudden you look over and you don't see somebody in the cab? Well, first thing you do is freak out. Don't freak out. There's nobody in the cab. Slow down. Just pay attention, and that truck will do exactly what it's supposed to do if you operate your vehicle properly. But still, again, so many questions. Weather, that's going to be a huge factor, right?
Yes.
So, and like you said there, Chuck, this is Loblaws. So this is in Canada. This is in Ontario. We get some real crappy weather here. And we're getting ready.
Driving in crappy weather.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder where they have like notifications on the truck, letting people know, notifying people that this is an autonomously driven truck.
That would be very interesting. You get those signs that, hey, learner in behind their student driver or something like that is one thing. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that would be. But does that make you operate your vehicle differently around that autonomous vehicle?
I think that Enrico, you bring up a valid point. it would be, on one hand, it'd be a great idea to letter the truck saying, caution, autonomous truck. But I think for the first while, it's going to probably be like when my late grandfather was a little boy and he saw his first motor vehicle, or his first airplane, and everybody clamored to see it. I can just imagine the rubberneckers around this vehicle looking, all they're going to see is a truck going down the road with nobody in it, but they want to see
Yeah.
it because we all
Yeah.
want to see it,
Well,
Yep.
well, I tell you what, Chuck. Funny thing, remember we were here in Atlanta at the truck at one of the
Yeah.
truck shows here, and they had the truck out there with the instead of the mirrors, it had like the cameras on the outside of it.
Mhm.
Well, I was
Yeah.
coming home the other day, and I'm passing a Snyder truck, and I look up and I see those arms on. They didn't have the mirrors, didn't have no mirrors. Those West Coast mirrors were gone.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
had the little fin sticking out with the camera. I was like, "Is that a driverless truck?" And I looked up. There was a driver in the truck, but it didn't have traditional West Coast mirrors on it at all.
Right.
It had cameras
Yep.
sticking out of the truck, and I couldn't see inside of the truck, but I'm assuming he had those screens on the inside, but there were no West Coast mirrors. There were no
Mhm.
blind spot mirror, any of that stuff. All that stuff, it was that little arm sticking out with cameras on it.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, and just to tell our listeners, Rico and I were at I think it was called Heavy Vehicle uh, Truck Show or something in Atlanta, and this truck did not have mirrors, and it was pretty
Oh,
cool.
yeah. Yep.
And it was actually they did a test on it in Washington D.C. of all places,
Mhm.
and if you've driven around the Washington area, it can be a tricky area, and it passed. So they did allow that technology. Um,
Mhm.
but my question is, what the heck do you do if if your technology fails? Well, how are you going to drive this truck without mirrors?
Mhm.
And those sensors or those cameras, like anything else, like we have never had any equipment since they've been making it not fail at some point. Okay.
Yeah,
We
it's a
had
piece of equipment. It's definitely gonna
Yeah.
break.
Yep.
it happens, guys. We had
Yep.
remember the space shuttle? What Apollo number was that crashed and killed all those
Mhm.
people?
Mhm.
Challenger. I was in the
Challenger.
fourth
Yeah.
or third grade. I remember watching it. I was in like fourth or third grade, and they had that thing playing.
Right. Um, we had that airship years ago that crashed in New Jersey. It doesn't matter what we invent; it's going to at some point fail. The Titanic. I can go on and on. I don't want to waste
Mhm.
everybody's time. What now, like we're so cautious of on a regular truck, you buy a new truck, it's got collision avoidance systems and all this, which I think are great as a truck owner and a still part-time truck driver, I guess. um, these tools are great. They're more tools to put in your belt,
Mhm.
but to limit yourself, okay, to me, and not have a vehicle that has mirrors in case something fails. That's like going bear hunting with one bullet.
Mhm.
You just wouldn't do it.
Well, you better be a
Yeah,
good shot.
Yeah, you do not. The bear's having a good lunch, John.
Yeah.
and yeah, but it's an interesting concept because even with the traditional mirrors and stuff, like they eventually had to put heating elements in them for
Yep.
the condensation to get the ice or fog or whatever
Yep.
so
Yep.
I'm interested to would be fascinated to know how it combats all that stuff, and
Yeah.
especially in inclement
Well,
weather, and how well it would perform in rain as well, because as
yeah.
in rain, when you got that tire spray, man, you can hardly see anything at
Mhm.
times.
Well, I know there's a number of motor carriers in the U.S. that have been able to get waivers to operate the camera mirrors, and they are in full effect. There's a number of motor carriers that are running them full time
And
now.
there's no mirrors on the trucks at
No
all.
mirrors on the truck. All it is a little camera
Yeah,
out the side of the vehicle, and the view is much larger than your mirror was. Right?
100,
Yep.
100%. I would never take that away.
Yep.
I think the technology is phenomenal. Okay.
Yep.
But would you have would you have an ocean liner without lifeboats? Come on.
Yep. Yep.
Like, what's the difference? Can
Yeah.
you imagine driving through those belt loops or whatever the hell you call them,
Beltways.
495 or whatever
Yep.
it is, Washington, D.C.,
Yep.
and your cameras mess up?
Yep.
You'd be running around in circles for 3 days,
Yeah.
till somebody rescued you.
So, at least with an ELD, I got paper logs.
But yeah, there you go.
How's it working when my camera gets going? I can't see backwards now. So yeah, it's gonna. I guess that's where the drivers have to get their makeup mirrors out and hold it out the window while they're driving and see what's coming up. But yeah, it's gonna be challenging. I guess what will be interesting is to talk to some drivers that have been utilizing this technology and find out, well, how robust is it? Like what happens if? Have you had a problem? I think that would be interesting to get some of that
But they
feedback
may
from.
not have had a problem yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. True.
Um,
True.
It's like somebody sent me an article last week about Thermo King, and over in Ireland. All right,
Yep.
a little different weather in Ireland, and more like what Rico is used to, as far as temperate weather, Atlanta to North Carolina, that region. And they've been running battery-powered refrigerated trailers successfully. 2,500 hours.
Yep.
Not a problem. What happens in Canada when and there's parts of Canada where, as you know, in Winnipeg and in Saskatoon, Regina, Edmonton,
Yep.
even sometimes Calgary, it can get 20, 30, 40 below.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Batteries don't work very well.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
these things are great for regions, and I think maybe even autonomous trucks. Would you want to run an autonomous truck in Chicago or New York City? That's the other thing, or a truck without mirrors.
Yeah. Well, hey, if the whole region was autonomous vehicles, there'd probably be no problem at all.
Yeah.
Because everything would be able to interact with each other and think faster than the human brain could. So, we'd have no delays. We'd probably have no rush hour. So, be just a steady flow of vehicles.
So here's a new topic. Well, not necessarily a new topic, but a lot more people are starting to go with this drug and alcohol and safety situation. More and more companies are starting to move away from traditional urine samples, and they're doing the hair follicle.
Hair, yes, and I don't have enough of that anymore. So yeah, that becomes a challenge.
How much of this? How much? Is this also the case with like, say, like your random drug screenings, and also after accidents and stuff like that? Is that also the case, or what's going?
I think that's what they're looking at. It hasn't been confirmed. I know it's been optional for a number of years. I believe JB Hunt had done something.
Yes, and Schneider as well.
Schneider as well. Yep, they were doing
it gave
something.
them a deeper dive into the past behavior of potential drivers.
Right. Yeah. Your hair has a history. It can give you timelines in your hair follicles and whatnot, so they can really see what's been going on.
From what I've read, is the most dangerous of substances, the fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, they're out of your system as far as urine tests. Those things don't show up in urine tests after about 48 hours. Marijuana, which seems it's legal in Canada, and so I'm told,
gaining more and more traction here in the States.
That's right. So, if the Dems get in, if the next president is a Democrat, it'll probably be legalized federally. What happens then? That
was my question.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, more and more people. Look, I've never been one to really experiment with drugs and stuff like that in my lifetime, but a lot of people, a lot of people partake, and no judgment on my end. but there are a lot, and we talk about the, here we go tying, kind of connecting some
Hmm.
dots back to the autonomous trucks. You don't have to worry about a liability of an autonomous truck failing the drug test.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
You may
a
have to
great
worry
point.
about the I think that some people may be willing to take a calculated risk when it comes
Hmm.
to an autonomous truck having an accident. Okay, that's one thing because it did that, but then how much you really can't demonize that autonomous truck if it has an
No.
accident. Whereas if you have a driver
Hmm.
that has that comes up with a cloudy piss sample
Hmm.
and failed the drug test or whatever, now you got all kind of a
Yep.
what does that do to with lawsuits, plaintiffs bar, and all that type
Yep.
of stuff.
Yep.
Great point.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
Well, so let's have a fun discussion here, because in essence we've got two tables to play from. In the North American market, we've got two tables. We've got the US and we've got Canada. So U.S. law says we got to, if we're operating in the federal aspect, cross border, whether it be international borders or state borders, we got to be under drug and alcohol testing.
Right.
No ifs, ands, or buts, right? In Canada, if you are a Canadian carrier operating into or out of the U.S., you must follow the U.S. Regulations and be in a drug and alcohol testing program. However, in Canada, there is no requirement when crossing provincial borders from one end of the country to the other. There is zero drug testing. And right now, with the new regulation or the new allowance of cannabis in Canada, um, I don't want to say that we're seeing more drivers doing it, but we're seeing a lot more drivers shifting to Canadian only work and
Yes,
not
huge.
doing cross border stuff, right? And interesting enough, the rules in Canada say it's not that you can't use drugs while driving, it's you cannot be impaired while driving. So I could be token up on Saturday, and feeling really good, and then by Sunday, it clears out of my system.
Yeah,
In my head, it's in my body, it's in my blood, but I'm not impaired when I go to work Sunday night or Monday morning. So I'm good to go, right? And
yeah,
then, oh, you're going to lay me over in Edmonton on Friday till Sunday or Monday again? We're having fun again, but I'm okay again by Monday to go. So it's really interesting how that applies. So, and I see an exodus in the driver market because drivers are going, I've had enough.
yeah.
You know what? My back's killing me. I've got pains. I got this. And you know what? Marijuana, wow,
you know
eases
what,
it.
though,
Oh, I feel
John, in all
100% better. I can move.
100%. But in all fairness, in all honesty, I have seen that go on since the U.S. started their
Oh,
drug
yep,
testing
yep,
over, I think, around 1998
yep.
when they first started it. And the first wave of it was carriers over 30 or 50 trucks. That was the
Hmm.
first one. And
Hmm.
then a year later, it was anybody that drove a commercial vehicle in the
Yep.
U.S. Didn't matter if you're based in Canada or based in the U.S.
Hmm.
You had to get drug tested, and
Yep.
and I think I'm very proud of our industry because
Hmm.
I saw what it was like before drug testing,
Oh,
and
yes.
and we had a problem as an industry.
Yep.
Uh,
Free for all.
it was a total free for all. Maybe when we were younger, we thought it was kind of funny, but it wasn't.
Superman.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? We didn't. I think when we were younger, we did not take safety nearly as
Yep.
serious as we do
Yep.
now. It was a different culture. I had a very good friend of mine that ran a fleet back. I'm talking about years ago, 40 years ago, and he ran a fleet of 17 trucks, and he had built a Model in. He did not have any collision insurance on his trucks, zero.
Hmm.
And instead of buying collision insurance, he bought another truck.
Yep.
And he knew damn well he would write off one truck a year. One out of 17.
Hmm.
Can you imagine if
Wow.
you did that today? It take away your operating authority.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But it was a different, and these guys his drivers would pride themselves on leaving Toronto
Yep.
Friday morning and pulling up at the customers in Vancouver, British Columbia, and they were not running through the U.S. They were going through Canada on Monday morning. And they didn't know how they got there, but most of them got there other than the 17th.
Yep.
But you know what? They didn't. And today, you couldn't. Nobody would insure you whether you paid for that the damage to that truck or not. You
Yep.
still could not get insurance.
Yep.
Because your safety record would be too bad.
Yep. Exactly.
So, John, here's a question for you, John. What
Sure.
seems to be the biggest hurdle, safety hurdle that we seem to be facing nowadays? What seems to be the number one bugaboo for most carriers out there?
Probably what I'm seeing here in the Canadian market, and keep in mind when I look at the Canadian market, these are Canadian motor carriers that are traveling to the U.S. Right? They're traveling back and forth across the border. More so, there's more of those carriers than there are traveling across Canada. But one of the biggest things we got going up here right now, and it's common in the U.S. as well, is trying to find drivers, trying to find the right drivers.
We have a bigger shortage here, John.
Pardon me?
Percentage-wise, we have a much larger shortage of drivers in Canada.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, our numbers are almost equal, and we are 1/10 your size.
Exactly.
That's how bad it is up here in Canada.
Yeah, and it's hurting bad. You've got a lot of older drivers leaving the industry, for one reason or another, retiring, aging body, falling apart, whatever it be. But probably one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is we have a lot of drivers coming out of driving schools right now, and they're not getting finishing training that they need. They so desperately need to become that good driver. So motor carriers are rushing the process, and they're hiring guys right out of school, or maybe only have 4 or 5 months, and then boom, put them in a truck and off you go. And we're seeing frequency of crashes because these drivers are really not ready for the road. They haven't been fine-tuned. There's been no finesse. Again, part of the problem is we don't have senior drivers out there doing the training and whatnot. I was into a company doing a risk evaluation here not too long ago, and the majority of their drivers had less than 5 years experience. Okay. This is a 100 truck fleet with their top guy had 5 years experience, and the average was around 3.5 years. You had drivers with 6 months experience training guys coming out of school.
That's common. Yes.
That's so scary. So scary because
that's common in the US too, though. Like I've seen the big guys, all the big guys in the US doing the same thing. So it's not just a Canadian issue.
No, exactly. It's just what we're seeing up here. But
you are 1,000% right about that whole thing. And what happens is you get somebody. It's the old expression: a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Okay, so you get a young person, or it could be an old person, that goes to one of these quick and ready truck driving schools, does the basics so that somebody can get them through the program for a CDL. And we have a new system in Canada called MELT, but. You know what? I'm a little suspicious of some of you. I'm just saying, and I will go public.
Apprehensive, non-committal, non-confident. So it's not a good program.
The big issue is when you send a person out that doesn't have a lot of experience, and they're especially by themselves, and there's nobody there to correct them. Those bad habits become that's how they drive. That's their everyday driving habits. It's just like, and I'm not a golfer, but a friend of mine said, that was an avid golfer. He said, very important to have somebody show you how to golf, because your bad habit, you'll just take those bad habits and you will just cement them into your game. And truck driving is the same way. And if you don't have somebody, that knowledge, that 20, 30, 40, 50 years of knowledge, saying, here, this is how you merge. This is make sure you get back in the lane. All these
Yep.
little
Yep.
secrets,
Yep.
Um,
So what do golfers have in common? The top golfers, your Tiger Woods, your Phil Mickelson, whatnot. What
training.
training
Yeah, they have
exactly.
a coach.
So
They have
they
a coach.
they have a coach exactly. So they coach, they train, they continually do this. Why aren't we seeing this in the trucking industry? Why aren't these new drivers getting um, that that support that they need? Because it's all about culture. Build the culture, provide the support to these new drivers, these young drivers, and whatnot, and help them become a better driver. I don't know any driver out there that wants to be a bad driver. They just don't know how to be a good driver without coaching, without
Yeah.
mentoring and whatnot. And you're absolutely right. I get so many guys that go, "Oh, well, we just put him on the road. He'll learn it. He'll."
Oh
No,
yeah.
that's not learning. That's practice, is what that is. But you have to give them good practice skills to practice.
Yeah.
So you have to set them up for success and show them what they need.
100%. Daryl Rutherford, good friend of ours, he just said something brilliant here. The problem with the MELT program, the students really believe they can drive.
Yep.
They
Yep.
don't understand what they don't know.
Yep.
When you offer a mentoring program, they won't do it. And
Yeah.
I agree. And the reason they won't do it is because they think they know.
Yep.
Another aspect of that too is that I don't know if it's just something of generationally or whatever, but the younger generation, just in my humble estimation and opinion, maybe an anecdotal from my anecdotal experience is we really don't take well to coaching. They really don't. We take it as some type of an affront or an attack
Mhm.
versus taking it as and sometimes it may be how the person delivers it as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
But sometimes we get into it. We're so defensive, which is why, like you look at road rage and everything is up on
Mhm.
the rise across. I'm pretty sure because here in Atlanta, that's a major issue is road rage.
Mhm.
Uh,
You
man,
guys all have guns too. That's
and I tell you, people just take things so personally nowadays, and instead of taking a breath and accepting what it is that that it could be for positive, man,
Yep.
we just get so defensive and the thing seems to just go off the rails.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Well, again, I think this comes back to the culture of the organization. This is what's really big. I've seen a lot of good companies do really good programs. And when they hire out of school, they go to the school, they work with the school, they
Yeah.
set up the program with the school. They have recruiters that walk into that school, and either just before you're taking the course or you're just getting into the course, they're trying to get attitude perception from different drivers, and all of a sudden they're offering you a job. So when you complete this course, I'm going to have a job, but there's going to be more training, there's more mentoring, more coaching. So when that driver comes out of school, has his CDL, he knows he's not done. He's got to go further yet. And that motor carrier is going to invest and put that in there. But there's a lot of carriers that don't. So now you have the problem of you get a guy that's really cocky and go, I got my license, I'm going to go drive truck. Well, I don't want to go work for the guy that's got the training program. I could be in the truck tomorrow if I go with this guy.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a fascinating brings up a question as far as in your industry with the safety industry and I know that a lot of different industries have different types of when they're recruiting and everything have different types of personality
Mm-hmm.
questions or personality tests or
Yep.
quiz, if you will.
Yep.
Is that something that maybe we're starting to see more of that coming into
Oh,
uh, the industry?
most definitely. Yeah, I have some strategic partners that specialize in driver behavioral testing. So that's what they're looking for. It's a quiz, it's a test, it's 100 questions, takes you about 15, 20 minutes to answer. And it's getting inside your head to
Right.
understand. And the funny part is, it's not 100 different questions. It's 100 questions with similarities, but they're asked in different ways. So you might get the same question asked of you 3 different ways, to make sure you're answering it the same way each time. So, but it really does help to give a personality of that driver. Are you passive? Are you aggressive? Are you easily distracted? Are you a team player? Are you a loner? So not to say that any one of these are bad or good traits. It all depends on the motor carrier and what you're looking for in a driver for your type of operation.
Right.
And the culture of that particular motor
Exactly.
carrier.
Exactly. Like if you're going to be in a team environment, I want a team player. Can you work with others? But if you're an independent driver and you're going to be long haul, I'm looking for that guy that can be out there on his own. And does he have the wherewithal to pull that off? So that testing is definitely out there, and it is showing positive results to be able to help a motor carrier mentor that person further. Or whether you're even the right fit for that organization. Maybe, these tests can tell you, are you a highway guy? Are you a city guy? Are you regional? Do you want to work weekends or not? Nights, days, stuff like that. It can all help you fit to find out, I like your testing. It's good results. I've got this type of role that I can offer you. And you're like, I've always wanted that type of role. I've always wanted to do that. Yes, your behavioral test told me that. So
big buzzword that's floating around in the around society nowadays is mental health. You have a lot of people, and it's fascinating throughout our conversation this evening as we're talking, and how much thinking big picture about all the stuff that we've been talking about, and how much of this ties back into the very first topic of the autonomous truck that we were talking about at the very beginning. And I'm just seeing from my little limited viewpoint of how beneficial this thing, the autonomous thing could be for bigger people. Not that I'm advocating for it, because this is my industry. Trucking has been very good to me. I love this industry. Has provided me with a great lifestyle. But it just, I'm just wondering, out loud, I'm thinking out loud here, with all of the stuff tying into one another, how big of being, separated from your family from extended periods of time, and the mental health of the driver and things of that nature. How big of this is this playing? Is this something that is playing also into the safety aspect of how safe a person is behind the wheel? Their mental health.
Huge, because what it does is, if you don't manage it, it becomes a huge liability, right? And it's going to be the next disastrous or catastrophic claim that you may have. We hear about the nuclear verdicts. It can have a bearing on that. Unfortunately, going back in the day, Chuck drove for a long time, and we were back in the era where suck it up, buttercup, and just get trucking. So I remember working for my family, and it was like, God, this is stressful. Yeah, well, learn how to deal with it, because this is going to be life for the next 20 years, But today, a different generation, they're not standing for it. No, I'm not going to put up with this. No, I want family time. You go talk to a guy who's driven for 50, 60 years. He's sacrificed his whole family for the job. Now, they're not interested in sacrificing family for the job. They're not interested. So with sacrificing the job for their health, it's a total different realm out there now, and motor carriers need to get on board. And I see a lot that are doing something, but some are not doing enough.
Well,
and they're not reaching out to their drivers of that generation and going, what can we do better? How can we do this better? It's it's the same old, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, hoping for a different result.
Definition
and it's not working
insanity.
for a different generation. Yeah, exactly. So, Chuck and I've talked about this before when we've talked about the hub and spoke model, right? Stop the long haul and do the hub and spoke. And then you could actually create a real job here where I can go out, come back, do my 500 miles, do my 10, 12 hours, and I go home to my family and I sleep in my bed every night, get up, do it again the next day. And while I'm off for my 12 hours, there's another guy jumping in that truck doing his 12 hours. And so the truck gets better efficiency.
You're right on the money. And with the cost of equipment, okay?
Yeah.
A new cheap truck is over 200 grand in Canada.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know how much they are down there, Rico, but I'm not talking about a long nose Pete or Kenworth or anything. I'm just talking about standard
Freight line.
international freight shaker
Yep.
is around 200 grand right now in Canada. That's a very expensive, tiny motel room.
Yep. Big
You
time.
know, this is insane. I think that the previous generations running trucking companies back in the regulated era, which I don't want to go back there, okay, because I was a huge proponent personally, as well as Traffics was, to get rid of regulation. But in a regulated era, it worked very well. And as a matter of fact, some of the companies even had bunk rooms for the drivers
Yeah,
in the 50s and
I
60s.
remember those
Yep.
days.
Yep.
And they
Terminals
had a
all
place
set up.
where a driver could go and he could get his rest and he could, and then he could go and shower and freshen up and have a sandwich or something and get on his way.
Yep.
And I think I think people don't want to do that either. I think people want to go out their 250 miles or 200 miles, depending on where they're going, and come back, and they want to sleep in their own bed and they want to eat at their own table.
Yep.
And I think when we start doing that, I think that the companies that do that will not have a shortage of drivers. I think they will eat everybody else's lunch because running from here to California and back to most people these days, it's different than it was, when John and I drove. But to the people these days, it's not a great job.
No,
because
it's not desirable anymore.
No, it's not, because there's too many rules. Number one, too much traffic along with the rules, and the traffic congestion. There's the rules don't allow you to work with the traffic congestion, meaning that you can't split up your day where you could, when you get outside Chicago, you can have a nap for 5 hours and then carry on, or do those things. And as a result of how strict it is, and we understand why it's strict, but as a result, people don't want to do it. And there's not, trucks aren't, we haven't done a whole lot to make trucking sexy either.
Was it ever sexy? Oh yeah, that big Peterbilt with all that chrome, that was sexy. I had a couple of them. Yeah,
there was a period of time it was sexy. The trucks were sexy. You were the last American cowboy.
Yeah.
You walked in somewhere. Oh, there's the driver. You were respected.
You were.
Okay?
You were very much
you
so.
You weren't called driver.
No.
Okay. When you walked in, oh, you're here. Oh, good. We'll unload you. And they unloaded you right away. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Unless you went there were certain places where you knew that, you took a load there and these idiots would take 3 days to unload it. But you would plan around that because you knew that this is going to be a 3-day horror show, and you made the best of it. And you either taught yourself a second language, learned to play guitar, or you helped unload it and got great muscles. You did something. You learned how to work it. But most places, when I started driving, were pretty good. Even if you had to hand bomb, most places were respectful.
So I'm gonna nicely wedge something in here, which is very relevant to what's going on today. Again, with that culture program, right, to change the way things are going. One of the big things we're starting to see is a shift in compensation, the way drivers are paid, and we're seeing those companies that are shifting to an hourly or a salary wage are seeing a lowering of their driver turnover. Their retention is going up, and it's working, and guys are staying and they're liking it and whatnot, because now I'm getting paid to do my vehicle inspection. I'm getting paid at the customer's facility waiting to get unloaded, and I'm getting paid to go down the road. And then when I park, I go, I'm not stressed like I was because I know I'm getting paid for everything I am. And I think if we see more of a shift in that fashion, what's interesting is before I say that, what's interesting is I'm seeing companies that are paying drivers by the hour or on a salary basis, and the onus is no longer on the driver to perform. It's on operations. you got to keep that guy moving. We're paying him by the hour. I don't want him sitting at that customer's dock for 3 hours. Either drop the wagon, shift him, get him moving to another trailer or something like that, or get a hold of the customer and tell him to get the damn wagon unloaded. So I think with that shift in responsibility, if we get enough of that going on, we're going to start seeing companies make that shift towards their customer and go, look, it is now costing me an arm and a leg to have that guy sitting in your door. I'm now going to start charging you more, or we're going to start charging you for drop trailers and whatnot. And I think once that shift happens, then you'll see customers step in and go, yeah, there's really no reason to make this guy wait 3 hours to get unloaded. We can streamline our process, get these trucks in and out right now.
I think one of the biggest, and I agree with everything that you just said. But one of the problems that I think that we have in this industry is that larger, more sophisticated carriers oftentimes have the capability of doing exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
The conundrum, I think, is our viewers, the small guys, the 1 and 2 truck operators, which make up the bulk of the industry. Whether you believe it, whether most guys believe it or not, the bulk of the transportation industry in the United States, and I'm not sure about Canada, but I definitely know for sure for the United States is the mom and pop 1 and 2 trucker.
Yep.
100%.
Independent trucker. And we don't, and as the small guy, we don't have that same power to be able to enforce those type of, to enforce the type of pushback what you just said from the major carriers and things of that nature. And until we as smaller guys can start to stand up for ourselves or have some type of alternative to help out with that situation, I think it's still, when you're dealing with the majority of people still getting a lot of their freight from transactional brokerage, and it's just a transaction, then we still have a lot of those problems that we're faced with.
Right.
So what is some of the biggest things that you are seeing from a safety aspect? What are some of the biggest things that that we need to be, some solutions that we might need to do to try to help improve our operations?
Yeah. Well, one of the big ones is we kind of touched on a little bit on already, training. Driver training, no ifs, ands, or buts, but it needs to extend farther than just drivers. Unfortunately, we neglect our operations staff, our maintenance staff, right? They all have to work together as a team because, hey, that driver's taking direction from operations as to how to get there. Well, let's make sure operations understands what the driver has to go through. Operations should learn hours of service management so that they know setting up that driver to make sure, okay, you've got 10 hours. Okay, well, I've got routed the miles. You got 8.5 hours it's going to take you to get there. You got plenty of hours to do it. Rather than going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's going to take you 11 hours to get there. You got 10.5. I guess you better step on it and get going, dude. That's got to go. That's archaic. There's no need for that. But also maintenance. I'm seeing a lack of success planning in the maintenance side of setting that driver up for success when he comes to a roadside inspection, right? There's certain things on a vehicle that a driver is not going to find during his daily vehicle inspection. You've got a number of items you're supposed to be looking for. I'm not going to find that cracked brake pot that's on the backside that I can't get to and see unless I was in a pit and crawled underneath that truck and trailer. No drivers climbing under a truck and trailer these days. It's just not happening. So mechanics have to be more aware to help the driver, and work on that basis. Companies need to look at the big picture and look at all this. How do I reduce my safety scores? How do I reduce my crashes and whatnot? And it all comes back down to managing people. All your people. So drivers, driver trainers, operations staff, maintenance staff, and whatnot, all need to be part of a bigger and larger teamwork. I see too many silos still within an organization. Mechanic goes, not my problem. I just fix the truck when it breaks down. Well, really? Yeah. How much longer would it take you to do a preventative check, like another 15 minutes looking over the truck, and you could have found that problem, with that slack adjuster and fixed it for the driver to go out so that when he does get stopped, he wouldn't get pulled over and it wouldn't cost us X number of dollars and points and, violations on our carrier profiles. So it's teamwork. Teamwork is huge. And again, that all comes back to that company culture approach, right? So it's trying to make sure we set the drivers up for success. And, doesn't mean we can't set everybody else up for success. Maintenance needs to be set up for success. Drivers need to understand how to work with maintenance to help maintenance better understand what they're trying to convey. Same thing with dispatch. I hate it when you hear dispatch and drivers fighting. It's like, there's no need to fight, guys.
Right.
They should be on the same page.
Very much so. Very much so.
When you have that fighting going on in organization, there's something out of whack because they're on the same team. It's no different than a sports team, and you have the players fighting. They're they're supposed to get the ball to the end zone or the puck in the net or whatever. Depends on the sport. And when you have these guys fighting midfield amongst themselves, it makes it very easy for the opponents to take them out.
Right. One of the neat things I like to do when it comes to training, I like to bring the folks that I'm working with in a training session into the solution approach. So rather than standing there with a PowerPoint telling the guys, okay, you need to know this and hours of service works this way and blah, 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 blah. A lot of these guys have already been beaten to death with training, and certain training will just turn them off, right? And they're just going to go like a tight fist and they're just going to turn off and they're not going to talk anymore. Whereas if we can bring those guys in to help become trainers with the group, it's like, okay, guys, here's the problem we're seeing within the organization. Here's what we got happening. I would love to hear your feedback on how can we correct the problem. The neat thing is the problem is the people you're standing in front of. It's all those drivers. But rather than telling them what they need to do to fix the problem, what if we get them involved with the solution aspect?
Right.
And now all of a sudden they start going, yeah, I know I'm not doing a proper vehicle inspection. Yeah, I've been pretty lazy. I don't do it. Yeah, I say I did it and I really don't do it. Okay, well, how do we fix that problem? What is it that we need to do? And a lot of times the drivers will help you with the solution. It doesn't mean it's the solution that's going to get implemented to correct the behavior, but it's definitely been brought up onto the table and discussed, and we know what's not working. So we need to talk about how do we make this happen? How do we do this better? And let's make this work.
Great point. I just want to, Daryl Rutherford, good point, John, but most companies still look at the money coming out of pocket now instead of following the big guys. And you know what we do at Durango, and our maintenance people say it's too much. I don't think you can ever have too much maintenance.
No, agreed. Yeah. So no, but Daryl's right. And Daryl's a small operation, so it makes it a bigger challenge for him as well. When we talked about the smaller guys don't have the resources like the big guys do, so it makes it a very challenge. So you have to think outside the box even more. But it doesn't mean it's going to fix the problem. It just, if you can continue with the conversation and keep that conversation light and going with everybody, But again, it's challenging. No matter what you do, it's going to be challenging.
100%. But I want everybody to remember that the largest carriers in this continent, Werner, Hunt, and Schneider, and I'll throw Knight in there. All started with one man driving one truck, every one of them.
Yep.
So, you know what, whether you have one truck or 20, if you have one truck, you can get to, this is the land of the free, both America and Canada. And if you are a man or a woman with driving one truck and you want to do the hard work and have 10,000 trucks, the world is yours. You can do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it a little differently and think outside the box, like you say. And safety, now more than ever, I think in 2022, I think safety has to be the foundation of your culture for growth.
Yes.
Because this is such a safety conscious business, safety
Yep.
sensitive business. So
Yep.
you've got to know your safety, and you've got to, you can't hire, you can't put a cold body in,
No.
in a cold truck.
No.
Just don't do it, because you're just going to bring problems.
Yeah. Well, you've got to think of not only, if you're neglecting safety, you're neglecting the health and wellness of that driver, of that operator, of that operations staff, of the maintenance staff, of anybody you got working in your organization. You're creating a moral hazard. You're creating reputational risk, because God forbid your name get out there, splashed out there, and go, oh boy, you don't want to work for these guys.
Right.
Go to Google, check out the Google review on most companies and see what they are, because the people will talk. It's so true, right?
They
So,
do.
but it's a matter of, again, work with your people, bring them in and whatnot. And again, it's challenging because you're dealing with so many different personalities and stuff like that. So, and today's day and age, it's hard to find the right guys. I don't think
Yes.
they're out there anymore. We've got a different breed of driver now.
You have to you're not going to make drivers do stuff they don't want to do.
No.
So you have to make the job attractive enough to hire the people to grow your business. Like, let's not be silly, okay? And let's not go into business creating wagon wheels when there's no demand for them.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's not going to work. That's setting yourself up for disaster.
Yep.
You create the business around people's wants and needs, and both your customers and your drivers. You could have 1 million customers, but if you don't have anybody to drive your trucks, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So figure out a program where you can hire drivers, because you can either afford to pay them enough, or you can give them the lifestyle they want, or both, and then you'll keep them. And I can tell you from my own experience at running a company, it is so much cheaper, so much more cost effective to concentrate on retention rather than recruitment.
Yep. Big time.
I'm looking at the time, and it just goes by so quickly.
Doesn't it always?
Please, he's back.
John, before we get out of here, though, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us, leave us with some closing thoughts on some things that maybe someone that's maybe looking in on us and thinking about starting a company or just starting out. Maybe give us a couple of pointers on some things to set themselves up properly for a culture of safety.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know what?
And also tell people how they can get in contact with you if they may need your assistance or your help.
Sure. Yeah. Probably one of the biggest things, if you're in the trucking industry and if you're a driver, take as much training as you can get your hands on, and then if you're looking to get into an owner operator role or get out and start your own organization, learn the rules. One of the biggest things that we battle out here is there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of enforcement, but it's easy to maneuver. It's easy to work with the law enforcement out there. You just need to know the rules. So if you're operating in the US, make sure you know the FMCSRs. If you're going to be operating in Canada, know the Highway Traffic Act of the provinces that you're going to operate in, because in Canada they differ. There's no federal rule. But anyway, it's get to know what the rules are and how to navigate them, maneuver around, so that you don't get yourself in trouble. And then, follow those rules and set yourself up. And again, as a one truck operation, take whatever training you can, business training, how to run a business, how to manage your business is better, because one day you're going to get busy and you're going to need to hire another truck. You're going to need to bring on a driver, or you're going to buy a truck and bring on that, or bring on an owner operator or something. So it's get to know what you need to know. And then as you grow, pay attention and continue to build that culture of safety. Bring in the resources you need as you grow. Probably one of the biggest problems I see is companies that have gotten to 100 trucks and they don't have that safety culture. They don't have that safety team. And now all of a sudden, that's the thing that's killing them. So
it kills them right away. It
does.
If you don't today, and this has been for a long time, but it's really prevalent now. If you don't have that culture of safety as your foundation, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's not the enforcement or authorities that are going to put you out of business.
Oh,
It's the insurance companies that are going to
right.
put you out of business. They're either going to allow you to get into this industry by giving you a reasonable premium to work with, or they're going to be the ones that cancel your insurance policy and you're not going to be able to afford anything that you can get anywhere else. So you'll be out of business very quickly. And it all has to do with safety, managing your safety profiles, managing your driver training, managing the losses that you have. You keep those all down to a minimum, you'll have insurance companies beating down your door wanting to insure you.
True.
Well,
True.
going back to the tie it back in, I'll let you finish up, John, to tell us how they can get in contact with you. But to tie it back in, we was talking about football earlier, and my old football coach used to always tell us, "You play by the rules, fellas. The penalties won't kill you." So,
Exactly. So true. So true. Yep.
Isn't that the truth?
Yep. Yep.
so John, tell the people how they can get in contact with you, and we'll get ready to wrap this thing up. We appreciate you for taking time out, for being so gracious with your time with us tonight.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me on
Well, we
board.
love
So,
having you.
yeah, so you can, I encourage anybody who wants to know a little bit more about Summit Risk Solutions, go to our website, Summit Risk Solutions with an S.ca. And there you'll find our phone number, email addresses, and whatnot. So rather than rhyming all that off, best place, go to our website, check us out. We're based in southwestern Ontario, and we do work for insurance companies as well as transportation companies of all sorts. You don't even have to be a trucking company, but we provide risk solutions, risk evaluations, and we will put a program together to help you put your safety management into place.
Well, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your generosity with your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It's I love hanging out with you guys. It's
Well, we're
it's
gonna
like
have you. You know what? Next time it won't be as long, so we're gonna have you.
yeah, us old guys get winded after a while, don't we?
You do pretty good.
Well, Chuck, my friend, let the people know how they can get a hold of you, and we'll get
Yeah,
ready
if
to
I
close.
can help any of our listeners, whether you want to get set up with Traffics as a carrier, or you're having some challenges with your business, or you have some questions, best way to reach me these days, send me an email, just chuck at traffics, TRAFFIX.com. Put your phone number on your email, because a lot of times it's just quicker for me to call our listeners back, and I'll help you any way I can. And with that, Rico, I'm going to let you back her into this hole here for another week.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you guys for taking time out to join us. Whether you looked at us live or joined us live, or whether you're looking at us later on, we are always appreciative of you doing so. Like, share, subscribe with the videos. If you would, please, that helps us out tremendously, helps us try to grow the channel. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, we want you guys to stay safe, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch on the flip flop. God bless.
Good night, gentlemen.